When my son called to tell me he was getting married, I asked him when the ceremony would be so I could buy my dress. His wife Amanda grabbed the phone and said with a voice so sweet it made my stomach turn, "Oh, we got married last Saturday. It was just a small thing. Only the people who truly matter." The people who truly matter. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone, feeling my knees go weak, remembering that just 2 weeks ago, I had written them a check for $4,000 to help with what they called wedding preparations. I had given them money for the wedding I was never invited to attend. For 4 years, I had been sending my son Jonathan and his girlfriend, now wife, $1,500 every single month. I paid for their apartment when they said they couldn't afford rent. I bought them a car when theirs broke down. I covered Amanda's student loans when she cried about the interest rates destroying her credit score. I paid for their vacations because Amanda said she was stressed from work and needed to decompress. I did all of this because I believed I was helping my family. I believed I was being a good mother. I believed that my sacrifices meant something to them. But the people who truly matter did not include me. Let me tell you who I am and how I arrived at this moment, because this story is not just about betrayal. It is about awakening. It is about discovering that the people you love most in this world see you as nothing more than a checkbook with a heartbeat. My name is Vivian. I am 68 years old. I live alone in a small house in Minnesota that my late husband Gregory and I bought 42 years ago. Gregory died 7 years ago from a heart attack that took him in his sleep, peacefully, without warning, leaving me with a modest life insurance policy, his pension, and a loneliness so deep I thought I would drown in it. When my son called to tell me he was getting married, I asked him when the ceremony would be so I could buy my dress. His wife Amanda grabbed the phone and said with a voice so sweet it made my stomach turn, "Oh, we got married last Saturday. It was just a small thing. Only the people who truly matter." The people who truly matter. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone, feeling my knees go weak, remembering that just 2 weeks ago, I had written them a check for $4,000 to help with what they called wedding preparations. I had given them money for the wedding I was never invited to attend. For 4 years, I had been sending my son Jonathan and his girlfriend, now wife, $1,500 every single month. I paid for their apartment when they said they couldn't afford rent. I bought them a car when theirs broke down. I covered Amanda's student loans when she cried about the interest rates destroying her credit score. I paid for their vacations because Amanda said she was stressed from work and needed to decompress. I did all of this because I believed I was helping my family. I believed I was being a good mother. I believed that my sacrifices meant something to them. But the people who truly matter did not include me. Let me tell you who I am and how I arrived at this moment, because this story is not just about betrayal. It is about awakening. It is about discovering that the people you love most in this world see you as nothing more than a checkbook with a heartbeat. My name is Vivian. I am 68 years old. I live alone in a small house in Minnesota that my late husband Gregory and I bought 42 years ago. Gregory died 7 years ago from a heart attack that took him in his sleep peacefully without warning, leaving me with a modest life insurance policy, his pension, and a loneliness so deep I thought I would drown in it. Jonathan was 31 when his father died. He had already been living with Amanda for 2 years by then, and I remember thinking how lucky I was that my son had found someone. I remember thinking that at least I would have grandchildren someday, that at least I would have family dinners and holidays filled with laughter and love. What I did not know was that Amanda had already done the math. She had already calculated what I was worth, what I could provide, and exactly how to extract it from me without ever making me feel used. The first request came 3 months after Gregory's funeral. Jonathan called and said they were having trouble making rent. The economy was bad. His hours had been cut at work. Amanda had just started a new job and wouldn't get her first paycheck for another month. Could I help them out just this once? I sent them $2,000 that same day. I did not even ask questions. My son needed help, and I was his mother. That was what mothers did. The second request came 6 weeks later. Amanda's car had broken down. The repair estimate was $1,800, and they just did not have it. I sent the money without hesitation. The third request came a month after that, and then another, and then another. Before I knew it, I had established a pattern that would define the next 4 years of my life. I was the emergency fund, I was the safety net, I was the solution to every financial problem they encountered, and somehow there was always a problem. I want you to understand something. I am not a wealthy woman. Gregory and I lived carefully our entire lives. We saved every extra dollar. We did not take fancy vacations. We drove our cars until they could not be repaired anymore. We built our modest savings through decades of discipline and sacrifice. And in 4 years, I gave away nearly $90,000 to my son and his wife. $90,000 that was supposed to be my security in old age. $90,000 that Gregory had worked himself to exhaustion to leave behind for me. But money, as painful as it is to lose, was not the worst part of what they took from me. The worst part was the way they made me feel like a burden, even as they burdened me with their constant needs. Before you continue, if you have ever felt invisible to the people you love most, if you have ever wondered whether your family sees you as a person or a resource, make sure you are subscribed. Stories like this one are mirrors, and sometimes we need to see ourselves clearly before we can change. Let me tell you about the dinner that should have been a warning. It was 2 years ago, in the fall. Amanda's parents were visiting from Oregon, and Jonathan invited me to join them for dinner at a restaurant downtown. I was so excited. I spent 3 hours getting ready. I bought a new blouse because I wanted to look nice. I even got my hair done at the salon, something I rarely treated myself to anymore, because every extra dollar seemed to go to Jonathan and Amanda. When I arrived at the restaurant, everyone was already seated. There were 6 people at the table, Jonathan and Amanda. Amanda's parents, Richard and Patricia. Amanda's sister Brooke and her husband, and then there was me. I noticed immediately that there was no chair for me. The table seated 6, and 6 people were already sitting. Jonathan jumped up when he saw me and said, "Mom, I forgot to tell them we needed a bigger table. Let me ask the waiter." But Amanda put her hand on his arm and said, "Actually, honey, this is fine. Your mom can sit at the bar, and we can visit with her there during dessert. It's actually better this way because my parents really wanted some quality time with us." I stood there in my new blouse with my freshly done hair, looking at my son, waiting for him to say something, waiting for him to tell his wife that his mother would not be eating alone at the bar while they had a family dinner 10 feet away. He did not say anything. Jonathan looked at me with those apologetic eyes I had come to know so well and said, "Mom, you don't mind, do you? We'll come sit with you later, I promise." I minded. I minded so much that I could feel my heart cracking right down the middle. But I smiled and said it was fine. I said I understood. I sat at the bar for 2 hours, watching my son laugh with Amanda's family, watching Amanda's mother hold her daughter's hand with such obvious love, watching everything I wanted but was not allowed to have. They never came to sit with me during dessert. Amanda said her parents were tired and they needed to get them back to the hotel. Jonathan hugged me quickly in the parking lot and said, "Thanks for understanding, Mom. You're the best." I drove home that night and cried until I could not breathe. But I did not stop sending money. I did not stop being available whenever they needed something. I did not stop believing that if I just loved them enough, if I just gave them enough, eventually they would love me back the same way. I was a fool. The months that followed that dinner became a blur of small humiliations that I chose not to see clearly. Birthday cards that arrived late or not at all. Phone calls that happened only when they needed something. Holidays spent alone because Amanda's family always came first. Every time I tried to talk to Jonathan about it, Amanda would call me later, her voice thick with tears, and say things like, "Vivian, I know you're lonely, but Jonathan feels so guilty when you make him choose between us. Can you please just be supportive? He's under so much pressure already." And I would apologize. I would apologize for wanting to spend time with my own son. I would apologize for having feelings. I would apologize for existing in a way that inconvenienced them. 3 months before the wedding, I was not invited to. Amanda called me with exciting news. They were finally getting engaged. Jonathan had proposed, and they were planning a beautiful ceremony for the following summer. She went on and on about her dream venue and her perfect dress and the flowers she wanted. Then she asked if I could help with the costs. The venue required a deposit of $5,000, and they were a little short. I sent the money that same week. Over the next 3 months, I sent additional checks totaling nearly $12,000. Money for the dress, money for the photographer, money for the caterer's deposit, money for things Amanda described in vague terms like wedding essentials and ceremony preparations. I was paying for a wedding I thought I would be attending as the mother of the groom. I was paying for a celebration of my son's love that would take place without me even knowing about it. When Amanda told me on that phone call that they had gotten married last Saturday, that they had only invited the people who truly matter, my first thought was not anger. It was confusion. Had I misunderstood? Had there been a miscommunication about the date? But then Amanda laughed, and it was not a nervous laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had won a game I did not even know we were playing. "I hope you're not upset, Vivian," she said. "It was really intimate, just my family and a few close friends. Jonathan said you probably wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway. You know how overwhelmed you get at big events." I do not get overwhelmed at big events. I have never gotten overwhelmed at big events. I did not even know where she had gotten that idea. "But," Amanda continued, "we would love to have a little celebration with you sometime. Maybe dinner at your house? I know how much you love cooking for people." She wanted me to cook dinner for them. She wanted me to celebrate the wedding I had paid for, but was not allowed to attend by serving them food in my home. "I need to go," I said. "Vivian, don't be upset. You know Jonathan loves you. We both do. You're family." I hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I did something I had never done before. I sat down with my bank statements and calculated exactly how much money I had given Jonathan and Amanda over the past 4 years. I wrote down every check, every transfer, every emergency that was never really an emergency, $87,423. I stared at that number until my vision blurred with tears. That was more than Gregory's entire life insurance policy. That was years of savings. That was money I would never get back. Money I would need if I got sick. Money I would need to live on when my pension was not enough. And for what? For the privilege of being excluded? For the honor of being told I was not one of the people who truly matter? I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed watching the shadows on the ceiling, replaying every interaction I had ever had with Amanda, seeing patterns I had refused to see before. The way she always brought up money within the first 5 minutes of any conversation. The way she answered Jonathan's phone when I called, always with an excuse for why he could not talk right now. The way she had slowly, systematically isolated me from my own son while making me feel like it was my fault for being too needy, too clingy, too much. I had been manipulated. I had been used, and I had been so desperate for love that I had let it happen. When the sun came up, something had changed inside me. I did not feel sad anymore. I felt clear, clearer than I had felt in years. I got out of bed, made myself a cup of coffee, and called my bank. "Good morning, Mrs. Patterson," the bank manager said when he came on the line. "How can I help you today?" "I need to cancel all automatic transfers to my son's account, and I need to know how to protect my remaining savings from anyone who might try to access them without my permission." There was a pause on the other end. Mr. Henderson had been managing my accounts for 15 years. He had processed every single transfer I had made to Jonathan and Amanda. He knew exactly how much money had left my accounts. "Mrs. Patterson," he said carefully, "are you sure about this? You've been sending money to your son for quite a while. Is everything okay?" "Everything is fine, Mr. Henderson. I've just finally realized that I need to take care of myself." Another pause. "I understand. Would you like to come in this afternoon? I can help you set up additional security measures, and we can discuss some options for protecting your assets. I'll be there at 2 o'clock. I spent that morning doing something I should have done years ago. I called my sister Barbara in Wisconsin. We had not spoken in almost a year because every time we talked, I would end up crying about Jonathan, and Barbara would tell me things I did not want to hear. "He's using you, Vivian," she had said the last time we spoke. "Can't you see that? Amanda has turned him into someone who sees you as nothing but a money source." I had gotten angry. I had told her she did not understand. I had hung up on her. Now I called her back. "Barbara, it's Vivian." There was silence on the other end, then my sister's voice. cautious but warm. Vivian, it's been a while. They got married without me. Jonathan got married, and they didn't even tell me until it was over. They said they only invited the people who truly matter. I heard Barbara's sharp intake of breath. Oh, Vivian, I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. You were right, and I was too blind to see it. Honey, I didn't want to be right. I would give anything to have been wrong. We talked for 2 hours. I told her everything. The dinner at the restaurant where I sat alone at the bar, the birthday cards that never came, the phone calls that only happened when they needed money, the wedding I had funded but was not invited to attend. Barbara listened without interrupting, and when I was done, she said something that changed the way I saw everything. Vivian, you have been grieving alone for 7 years. When Gregory died, you lost your partner, your best friend, the person who made you feel valued every single day. And instead of letting yourself grieve properly, you poured all that love and need into Jonathan. You were so desperate not to be alone that you let them treat you like you didn't matter, because at least being used was better than being forgotten entirely. I started crying. Not because she was being cruel, but because she was telling me the truth, and the truth was something I had been hiding from for far too long. What do I do now? I asked. How do I fix this? You can't fix them, Vivian. You can only fix yourself. You have to learn that you matter, not because of what you can give people, but because of who you are. After we hung up, I drove to the bank and met with Mr. Henderson. He helped me cancel all the automatic transfers. He set up additional security on my accounts. He changed all my passwords and removed Jonathan as an authorized user, something I did not even remember authorizing in the first place. Mrs. Patterson, he said as I was leaving, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I've watched a lot of money leave your accounts over the past few years. I always wondered if you were okay. I'm glad you're taking control. His words meant more than he knew. Here was a man I saw maybe twice a year, someone who only knew me through financial transactions, and he had shown more concern for my well-being than my own son had shown in years. When I got home that evening, there were 3 missed calls from Jonathan and 2 from Amanda. I did not call them back. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my back porch, watching the sun set over the trees that Gregory and I had planted together 30 years ago. For the first time since he died, I felt something other than loneliness. I felt peace. Not happiness, not yet, but peace. The peace that comes from finally telling the truth to yourself. The next morning, my phone rang at 7 o'clock. It was Amanda. Vivian, what's going on? Jonathan tried to use the card for groceries yesterday, and it was declined. Did something happen with the bank? Yes, I said. I canceled all the transfers. Silence. Then, what do you mean you canceled them? Jonathan counts on that money. We have bills to pay. You are both adults. You will need to find another way to pay your bills. Vivian, you can't just do this without warning. We have obligations. The car payment is due next week. The rent is due in 5 days. If we don't have that money, we'll be in serious trouble. Then I suggest you both find additional employment. Amanda's voice changed. The sweetness disappeared, replaced by something hard and ugly. Is this about the wedding? Because I knew you would make this about yourself, eventually. Jonathan told me you were like this. He said you always made everything about you and your feelings. Amanda, I am going to hang up now. If you or Jonathan need to speak with me in the future, please do so through written correspondence. I will not be taking any more phone calls. Vivian, wait, you can't be serious. Jonathan is your son. You can't just abandon him like this. Goodbye, Amanda. I hung up and turned off my phone. For the next 3 days, I did not turn it back on. I did not check my email. I did not answer the door when I heard someone knocking. I spent those 3 days doing something I had not done in years. I took care of myself. I cleaned my house from top to bottom. I cooked meals that I enjoyed eating instead of meals I thought other people would want. I sat in my garden and read books I had been meaning to read for decades. I took long walks through the neighborhood where Gregory and I had raised our son, remembering happier times before everything went wrong. On the 4th day, I turned my phone back on. There were 47 missed calls, 32 from Jonathan, 15 from Amanda, There were dozens of text messages, ranging from pleading to threatening to manipulative. Mom, please call me back. This is serious. Vivian, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this isn't funny. Mom, are you okay? We're worried about you. Please let us know you're safe. If you don't respond, we're going to have to call the police for a wellness check. Vivian, this is elder abuse. You can't just cut off your own family. We have lawyers. Mom, Amanda is really upset. She thinks you hate her. Please call and tell her that's not true. If you don't contact us by tomorrow, we're coming to the house. I read every message without feeling anything. It was strange. A week ago, any one of these messages would have sent me into a panic. I would have called immediately, apologized profusely, done whatever they wanted to make them happy again. But something had broken inside me, or maybe something had finally healed. Either way, I was done. I was done apologizing for having feelings. I was done being grateful for scraps of attention. I was done financing the lives of people who saw me as nothing but a source of income. I was done. The next afternoon, there was a knock on my door. Through the window, I could see Jonathan's car in the driveway. My heart started racing, but I made myself breathe slowly, calmly. I had done nothing wrong. I had nothing to apologize for. I opened the door. Jonathan stood on my porch, looking tired and angry and scared. Amanda was behind him, her arms crossed, her face set in that expression of righteous indignation I had come to know so well. "Mom," Jonathan said, "can we come in?" "No." He blinked. "What do you mean, no? We need to talk about this. You can't just cut us off without an explanation." I believe Amanda already received my explanation. That wasn't an explanation. That was you having some kind of breakdown. We're worried about you. We think you might need to see a doctor. And there it was. The same playbook Amanda had been using for years. Make me doubt myself. Make me think I was the problem. Make me apologize for having legitimate feelings about legitimate grievances. I do not need to see a doctor, Jonathan. What I need is for you to understand that I will no longer be your source of financial support. Amanda pushed past Jonathan and got close to my face. "This is ridiculous, Vivian. We've done nothing wrong. We're family. Families help each other." "Help is not what you have been receiving from me, Amanda. What you have been receiving is exploitation." "Exploitation?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're crazy. Jonathan, I told you she was losing it. We need to call someone." Jonathan put his hand on Amanda's arm, and for a moment, I thought he might actually defend me. I thought I might see a glimpse of the boy I had raised, the boy who used to bring me flowers from the garden, the boy who used to tell me I was the best mom in the world. But then he said, "Mom, Amanda's right. You've been acting strange lately, isolating yourself, making irrational decisions. Maybe we should have someone check on you." I felt something collapse in my chest. The last remaining hope that my son might choose me, might see me as a person rather than a problem, disappeared entirely. "I would like you both to leave my property now." "Mom, we're not leaving until you agree to talk about this like rational adults." "If you do not leave, I will call the police." Amanda grabbed Jonathan's arm. "Let's go. She's obviously not thinking clearly. We'll come back when she's had time to calm down." But Jonathan did not move. He stood there looking at me with those eyes that I had loved for 35 years, and I saw something in them I had never seen before. Not love, not concern, not even anger. I saw calculation. He was trying to figure out how to get what he wanted. He was trying to find the right words, the right approach, the right manipulation that would make me open my wallet again. "Mom," he said softly, "I know you're hurt about the wedding, and you have every right to be. It was wrong of us to exclude you. I've felt terrible about it, I really have. But punishing us financially isn't the answer. Let's talk about this. Let's find a way to move forward together." It was a good performance. If I had not spent 4 years watching his performances, I might have believed it, but I knew better now. "Jonathan, in the past 4 years, I have given you nearly $90,000. I paid for a wedding I was not allowed to attend. I paid for vacations I was not invited to join. I paid for a life in which I had no place. And the one time I asked for something in return, the one time I wanted to watch my only son get married, I was told that I was not one of the people who truly matter. So tell me, Jonathan, if I don't matter, why should my money?" He did not have an answer. Neither did Amanda. They stood there on my porch, mouths open, unable to argue with the simple truth I had just spoken. Leave my property. Do not come back. I stepped inside and closed the door. I locked it. I walked away from the window so I could not see them leave, and then I sat down on my couch and cried. But even through the tears, I felt something new, something I had not felt in years. I felt proud of myself. For the next 2 weeks, I heard nothing from Jonathan or Amanda. No calls, no texts, no visits. Part of me was relieved. Part of me was devastated. The silence felt like proof that I had been right all along. I was only valuable to them when I was giving them money. Without the money, I did not exist. During those 2 weeks, I started rebuilding my life. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected because I was always available for Jonathan and Amanda's emergencies. I joined a book club at the local library. I started volunteering at an animal shelter because I had always wanted to work with animals, but never had the time. I also hired a lawyer. Mr. Whitman was recommended to me by Barbara, who had used him when she had her own family disputes years ago. He specialized in elder law and estate planning, and when I told him my story, his expression became very serious. "Mrs. Patterson," he said, "what your son and daughter-in-law have done to you is called financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. It's illegal in most states, and it's becoming more and more common as people live longer and their children become impatient for their inheritance. I don't want to press charges against my own son. I understand, but we need to protect you going forward. Have they ever discussed your estate? Your house? What will happen to your assets when you pass away?" I thought about all the times Amanda had made comments about my house, how it was such a great location, how it would need to be renovated someday, how much it would be worth if I ever decided to sell. "Yes," I said. "Amanda talks about it quite a bit." Mr. Whitman nodded. "I'm going to recommend some changes to your estate plan. We should also discuss power of attorney, medical directives, and other documents that could potentially be used against you if they decide to escalate." "You think they might try something more than just asking for money?" "Mrs. Patterson, based on what you've told me, your daughter-in-law is very sophisticated in her manipulation. When the money stopped flowing, she would have started calculating other ways to get what she wants. The fact that your son mentioned having you declared incompetent suggests they've already consulted with someone about their options." His words made my blood run cold. Incompetent. The word felt like a death sentence. "What can I do?" "We prepare. We document everything. We make sure that if they try to have you declared mentally incapable of managing your own affairs, we have overwhelming evidence to the contrary." Over the next several days, Mr. Whitman helped me put together a comprehensive protection plan. I got a complete physical and mental health evaluation from my doctor, who confirmed that I was in excellent health for my age with no signs of cognitive decline. I gathered financial records showing my consistent and responsible money management. I documented every interaction I had ever had with Jonathan and Amanda that suggested financial exploitation. I also made some changes to my will. Previously, Jonathan had been my sole beneficiary. Everything I owned would have gone to him when I died. Now I divided my estate between several charities that mattered to me, with a small portion set aside for my sister Barbara. Jonathan was removed entirely. When I signed the new documents, Mr. Whitman asked me if I was sure. "He's still my son. Doesn't that count for anything?" "Blood doesn't entitle anyone to your money, Mrs. Patterson. Love might. Respect might. Basic human decency might. But blood alone? No, that's not enough." He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing something and feeling it are two very different things. Exactly 3 weeks after I closed my door on Jonathan and Amanda, I received a letter in the mail. It was from a law firm I had never heard of. The letter stated that my son Jonathan Patterson and his wife Amanda Patterson were filing a petition to have me declared legally incompetent due to concerns about my mental health and decision-making capacity. They were requesting that the court appoint Jonathan as my legal guardian, with full control over my finances, my healthcare decisions, and my living situation. I read the letter 3 times before the words sank in. My son was trying to have me declared mentally unfit so he could take control of my money. My son was willing to tell a judge that his mother was crazy because she stopped giving him a monthly allowance at the age of 35. I called Mr. Whitman immediately. "I just received it too," he said. "They filed this morning. There's a hearing scheduled for 3 weeks from now. Can they do this? Can they just decide I'm incompetent because I stopped paying their bills?" "They can try. But Vivian, they have no evidence. Your medical records show you're in perfect health. Your financial records show responsible management. You have friends who can testify to your mental clarity. This is a desperate move by desperate people." "But what if the judge believes them? What if I lose?" "Then we appeal, and we file countercharges for attempted elder abuse. But I don't think it's going to come to that. This lawsuit is embarrassingly weak. Any competent judge will see it for what it is." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that the legal system would protect me from my own son. But I had spent 4 years trusting the wrong people, and I was not sure I could trust anyone anymore. The next 3 weeks were the longest of my life. I spent my days preparing for the hearing with Mr. Whitman. We gathered testimony from my doctor, my neighbors, my friends from the book club, even Mr. Henderson from the bank. Everyone who knew me was willing to say that I was perfectly capable of managing my own life. I also started keeping a detailed journal of everything that happened. Every phone call, every letter, every time Jonathan or Amanda drove past my house, which they did almost every day. Mr. Whitman said the documentation would help prove that their concern was not about my well-being, but about regaining access to my money. 1 week before the hearing, I received a phone call from a number I did not recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mrs. Patterson? This is Dr. Franklin from the Meadowbrook Psychiatric Institute. I'm calling to schedule your evaluation." "I'm sorry, what evaluation?" "Your son and daughter-in-law have requested a psychiatric evaluation as part of their guardianship petition. They've asked us to assess your mental capacity and make a recommendation to the court." I felt my chest tighten. "I did not agree to any evaluation with your facility." "I understand you may be resistant, Mrs. Patterson, but the court has ordered the evaluation. If you refuse to participate, it could be seen as evidence that you have something to hide." Something felt wrong, very wrong. "Can you give me the case number for this court order?" There was a pause. "I don't have that information in front of me, but Mrs. Patterson, I assure you this is standard procedure. We just want to help establish whether you need support in managing your affairs. I will contact my lawyer and have him confirm the details. What is your full name and the exact name of your facility?" Another pause, longer this time. "I'll have our office send you the official paperwork. Have a good day, Mrs. Patterson." He hung up. I immediately called Mr. Whitman and told him about the conversation. "There's no court-ordered evaluation, Vivian. I would have been notified. This sounds like Amanda trying to trick you into an evaluation at a facility they've chosen, with a doctor who might be willing to say whatever they want him to say." "Is that legal?" "No, it's not. And it's going to help our case tremendously. Did you record the call?" I had not. But I had written down everything immediately after hanging up, including the supposed doctor's name and facility. Mr. Whitman's investigators confirmed what we suspected. There was no Dr. Franklin at Meadowbrook Psychiatric Institute. There was no Meadowbrook Psychiatric Institute. The phone number traced back to a prepaid cell phone purchased with cash. Amanda had tried to trick me into an evaluation with someone who did not exist, presumably hoping I would give them ammunition to use against me in court. "This changes everything," Mr. Whitman said. We're not just defending against their petition anymore. We're filing a counterclaim for harassment and attempted fraud. The night before the hearing, I could not sleep. I lay in bed thinking about Gregory, wishing he were here to hold my hand and tell me everything would be okay. He had always believed in me, always made me feel like I could handle anything as long as we were together. But I was not together with anyone anymore. I was alone. And somehow, that thought did not terrify me the way it used to. I had spent the last few weeks learning that being alone was not the same as being lonely. I had friends now, real friends, who cared about me as a person. I had a sister who called every day to check on me. I had a community of people who saw my value without expecting anything in return. I had myself. And maybe after 68 years, that was finally enough. The hearing was held in a small courtroom that smelled like old wood and anxiety. I arrived early with Mr. Whitman, dressed in my best navy blue suit, the one Gregory had always said made me look powerful. Jonathan and Amanda arrived 5 minutes before the hearing was scheduled to begin. Jonathan was wearing a suit I had never seen before. Amanda was dressed all in black, as if she were attending a funeral. My funeral, perhaps. The death of my independence. They did not look at me. Their lawyer was a young man who looked barely old enough to have finished law school. He had the nervous energy of someone who knew he was about to lose, but had to go through the motions anyway. The judge was a woman in her 60s, with silver hair and sharp eyes. Judge Catherine Morrison. Mr. Whitman had told me she was known for being fair but firm, with no patience for family members who tried to exploit their elderly relatives. The hearing began with their lawyer presenting the case for guardianship. He described me as an elderly woman who had become increasingly erratic and irrational. He claimed I had cut off my family without explanation, isolated myself from loved ones, and shown signs of paranoid behavior by installing security cameras and changing my locks. He made my self-protection sound like mental illness. When it was Mr. Whitman's turn, he calmly dismantled every argument. He presented my medical records, showing perfect physical and mental health. He presented financial records, showing decades of responsible money management. He presented testimony from neighbors, friends, and professionals who had interacted with me recently and found me to be completely lucid and capable. Then he presented the evidence of the fake phone call. Your Honor, the petitioners attempted to deceive Mrs. Patterson into attending an evaluation at a facility that does not exist, with a doctor who does not exist. This is clear evidence that their concern is not for Mrs. Patterson's well-being, but for regaining access to her financial resources. Jonathan's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him with a look. Is this true? She asked, turning to Jonathan and Amanda. Did you or your representatives contact Mrs. Patterson about a psychiatric evaluation that was not ordered by this court? Amanda started crying. It was the same performance I had seen dozens of times before, the tears that appeared whenever she needed to manipulate someone into giving her what she wanted. But Judge Morrison was not impressed. Mr. Patterson, she said, addressing Jonathan directly, your mother is clearly here in this courtroom, responding appropriately, demonstrating no signs of confusion or impairment. Can you explain to me why you believe she is incapable of managing her own affairs? Jonathan looked at Amanda. Amanda looked at their lawyer. Their lawyer looked at his notes. Your Honor, Jonathan finally said, my mother has always been very generous with us. Her sudden decision to stop providing financial support was completely out of character. We're worried that someone has manipulated her into alienating herself from her family. Judge Morrison raised an eyebrow. So your evidence of her mental incapacity is that she stopped giving you money? It's not about the money, Your Honor. It's about the change in her behavior. The change in behavior being that she stopped giving you money. Jonathan did not have an answer. The judge turned to me. Mrs. Patterson, I'd like to hear from you directly. Why did you decide to stop financially supporting your son and daughter-in-law? I stood up, my hands trembling slightly, but my voice steady. Your Honor, for 4 years I gave my son nearly $90,000. I paid his rent, his car payments, his wife's student loans, their vacations, their emergencies. I did this because I loved him, and I wanted to help him build a good life. 6 weeks ago, my son got married. I found out about it when his wife called me afterward and told me they had only invited the people who truly matter. I had paid for the wedding. I was not invited to attend. That was when I finally understood that to them, I was not a mother. I was not family. I was a source of income. And when I stopped being a source of income, they decided to try to have me declared mentally incompetent so they could take control of my money anyway. I am not incompetent, Your Honor. I am heartbroken. But those are very different things. The courtroom was silent. Judge Morrison looked at Jonathan and Amanda for a long moment. Then she spoke. I have seen many cases like this over the years. Adult children who view their parents as piggy banks rather than people, who mistake generosity for obligation, who believe that the money their parents worked a lifetime to earn belongs to them simply by virtue of their existence. Mrs. Patterson is clearly a competent, intelligent woman who has made a rational decision to protect herself from financial exploitation by her own family. This court finds no evidence whatsoever to support the petition for guardianship. Furthermore, I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for investigation of potential elder abuse. The deceptive phone call described in the evidence is particularly concerning and may constitute fraud. The petition is denied in full. Mrs. Patterson, you are free to manage your own affairs as you see fit. Mr. Patterson, Mrs. Patterson, I strongly suggest you seek counseling to understand why you believe this course of action was appropriate. She banged her gavel. Court is adjourned. I stood in the hallway outside the courtroom, feeling like I had just survived a war. Mr. Whitman shook my hand and told me I had been magnificent on the stand. Jonathan and Amanda walked past me without a word. But just before they reached the exit, Jonathan stopped. He turned and looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes that might have been shame. Mom, he said quietly, I'm sorry. Amanda grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door. Let's go, Jonathan. She's not worth it. He let her pull him away, and I let him go. That night, I sat on my back porch with a glass of wine, watching the stars come out one by one. Barbara had called to congratulate me on the victory. My friends from the book club had sent flowers. Even Mr. Henderson from the bank had left a voicemail saying he had heard the good news and was proud of me. I thought about Jonathan's apology in the hallway. 2 words, spoken quietly, yanked away before they could mean anything. I'm sorry. Was he sorry for what he had done? Or was he sorry that it had not worked? Was there any part of my son left in that man? Or had Amanda consumed him entirely? I did not know. I might never know. But I knew this. I had spent 68 years learning how to love other people, how to take care of other people, how to sacrifice for other people. It was time to learn how to take care of myself. 6 months have passed since the hearing. I sold my house and moved to a small apartment in a senior living community where I have made more friends in 6 months than I made in the previous 20 years. I travel now. Last month I went to Italy and stood in front of the David, crying because Gregory had always wanted to see it and never got the chance. I volunteer at the animal shelter 3 days a week. I am learning to paint. I have started writing my memoirs, not because I think anyone will want to read them, but because I want to remember who I was before I lost myself, and who I became when I found myself again. I have not spoken to Jonathan since the day of the hearing. He sent me a letter 2 months ago. It was 4 pages long, filled with explanations and justifications and carefully worded apologies, that somehow managed to blame me for everything while asking for forgiveness at the same time. He said Amanda had left him. He said he was struggling financially. He said he had realized how wrong he had been and wanted a chance to make things right. I read the letter once, then put it in a drawer. I do not hate my son. I do not think I ever could hate him, no matter what he has done. But I have learned something important over the past 6 months. Love does not require sacrifice. Love does not require you to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Love does not require you to accept disrespect, humiliation, and exploitation in exchange for the occasional crumb of affection. Love is supposed to feel like coming home. And for too long, my love for Jonathan felt like being locked outside in the cold, knocking on a door that would never open. I am done knocking. Some nights, I still think about the wedding, about the beautiful dress I never got to wear, about the photographs I never got to be in, about the moment when my son said I do to a woman who saw his mother as nothing but a checkbook with a heartbeat. But more often now, I think about the life I am building, the friends who make me laugh, the books I am reading, the places I am seeing, the woman I am becoming. I am 69 years old now. I do not know how many years I have left, but I know this. However many years I have, I will spend them being kind to myself, being proud of myself, being enough, just as I am. My name is Vivian. I am a mother whose son chose money over love. I am a woman who gave away almost everything she had before learning that she deserved to keep some things for herself. And I am finally at peace. If this story touched your heart, if you recognized yourself or someone you love in these words, please like and share. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give each other is the knowledge that we are not alone, that someone else has walked this road and survived, that there is life after betrayal and light after darkness. And what about you? What would you do if the people you loved most told you that you were not one of the people who truly matter? I would love to hear your thoughts. Please share them with me in the comments below. Until next time, take care of yourselves. You deserve it. You matter. Never let anyone make you believe otherwise.